I would say a little bit of a surprise result. We're battling with the Ferrari, not too far off the Mercedes.
Listen, guys, Max Verstappen is in serious trouble heading into Monaco, and nobody is talking about how bad this actually is. His car is falling apart on bumps, former F1 legends are publicly saying he's leaving Red Bull, and the entire driver market is literally frozen, waiting on one man's decision. Today, we're breaking down everything. The Monaco warning, the exit predictions, the silly season chaos, and the one thing Max just got that could change everything. Stay with me because this gets wild. Let's break it down. But before, if you want more updates and news on Max, then hit that like button and subscribe button for more breakdown. Red Bull's broken back problem. So let's start with Monaco, because honestly, this is where things get really interesting. After the Canadian Grand Prix, Verstappen was asked about the upcoming Monaco race weekend, and his response was hilarious, but also kind of alarming at the same time. He literally laughed and said, "I think I'm going to order a new back." Now that sounds like a joke, but underneath that joke is a very real problem that Red Bull simply cannot seem to fix. The car absolutely hates bumps, it hates curbs, and Monaco is basically a city built entirely out of bumps and curbs. Verstappen himself admitted that anywhere bumpy is going to be difficult for them, and the frustrating part is that even he doesn't fully understand why this keeps happening. He said, "If only we knew exactly what was causing it." And that right there tells you everything. When your own driver doesn't know why his car is struggling, that's not a small issue. That's a fundamental problem. Can Red Bull actually fix this? Now here's where Red Bull boss Laurent Mekies stepped in and tried to calm everyone down. He said there is nothing they're seeing right now that cannot be fixed in 2026, which sounds reassuring on the surface. But then he also admitted that fixing the ride problem without losing lap time is genuinely complex. And that's the real challenge here, because apparently it would be easy to fix the bumpy ride issue, but in doing so, you would just make the car slower overall. So they're not just fixing one thing, they're trying to solve a puzzle where every piece affects every other piece. And with Monaco coming up this weekend, time is not exactly on their side. The good news for Max fans is that Mekies still believes progress is coming, and circuits like Baku and Singapore later in the year could actually show real improvement. The regulation war gets louder, but the bumpy car problem is honestly just the tip of the iceberg, because the bigger story right now is Max versus the 2026 regulations, and this battle is getting intense. After Canada, Verstappen came out and said continuing in Formula One beyond this season is simply not doable unless something changes with the rules. He's called these cars Formula E on steroids. He said they're not fun to drive, and now Red Bull is actually backing him up publicly. Mekies came out and said the sport needs to fix these regulations once and for all, not keep having the same conversation every year. The FIA has proposed changing the engine power balance from 50-50 to 60-40 in favor of the combustion engine, which is exactly what Max wants. The problem is that 4 out of 6 manufacturers need to agree. And right now, that number isn't there. So Max is stuck waiting, the sport is stuck debating, and meanwhile, the clock is ticking on his patience. Patrese drops a bombshell. Now hold on, because this next part is where things get really dramatic. Former F1 driver Riccardo Patrese recently made a prediction that sent shockwaves through the entire paddock. He said very simply that if Lambiase is leaving Red Bull, then Max is also leaving Red Bull. And for those who don't know, Gianpiero Lambiase is Max's longtime race engineer, the voice in his ear for every single race since 2016. Through all 4 world championships, McLaren just signed him away from Red Bull, and Patrese believes that's the final sign that Max's time at the team is done. He went even further and said Max is not feeling very happy right now, and that at the end of this season, he will probably make his move. Patrese also mentioned that Ferrari, Mercedes, everyone would make space for him tomorrow because when you're Max Verstappen, every door in the paddock is wide open. The silly season chaos. And that leads us perfectly into the craziest part of this whole story, which is what's happening in the driver market right now. Because of all this uncertainty around Max, literally two major teams are just sitting and waiting before they make any decisions. Alpine boss Flavio Briatore straight up admitted that he doesn't know what's going to happen with Mercedes, and until he knows whether Mercedes is going to sign Verstappen, he's not finalizing Alpine's own driver lineup. Mercedes, meanwhile, still has Toto Wolff keeping the door open for Max in 2027. So you have one driver causing a domino effect that is freezing the entire silly season. One decision from Max Verstappen could move Russell, could move Antonelli, could completely reshape the top half of the grid. It's honestly wild that one person has this much power over the whole sport. Max gets his clean slate. Now, here's a piece of news that actually went under the radar, but it's genuinely important. As of June 1st, Max Verstappen entered Monaco week with 0 penalty points on his FIA super license. Completely clean. And if you remember last year, he was sitting at 11 points, literally 1 penalty away from a race ban after that controversial collision with George Russell in Spain. He spent months walking on eggshells, being careful, avoiding any incident that could trigger a ban. Now all of those points have expired and he goes into Monaco completely free. And the timing couldn't be better, honestly, because Monaco is exactly the kind of street circuit where aggressive, brave driving gets rewarded. Max now has nothing hanging over his head going into one of the most important weekends of the season. What happens next? So let's bring it all together. Red Bull has a serious ride problem that is making Monaco look very scary for Max. The regulation war is still ongoing and his patience is running out. Patrese thinks he's already mentally checked out of Red Bull. The entire driver market is frozen, waiting on his next move. And yet he walks into Monaco this weekend with a clean license and something to prove. My honest opinion? I think Max stays in Formula One, but I don't think he stays at Red Bull beyond this contract. The combination of the Lambiase departure, the struggling car, and his frustration with the regulations is just too much. And here's the question I want to leave you with. If Verstappen does leave Red Bull, which team actually deserves him, and which team could actually give him what he needs? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you think.